Well, welcome to another episode of the Wausau Police Department podcast. My name is Matt Barnes. I'm the Chief of Police. I'm here this morning with, a lot of people know her as Tracy Rieger. Her current married name is Tracy Durante, and she's our Community Outreach Specialist. And we're excited, and we asked for kind of an emergency podcast filming because there are a lot of different changes that are occurring in our community right now in regards to homeless sheltering and what is the plan for Wausau moving forward. And the police department has some stewardship over that. So just engage in a conversation today and hopefully answer any questions anybody would have about what are we going to do and what's the long-term plan here.
Perfect. Well, thank you for having me.
What else did I miss about the famous
Nothing.
Tracy Durante, well known in our community for moving mountains to be able to help people?
Nothing. I think that's it.
Well, let's start with, the Wausau Police Department employs a community outreach specialist, which is you. And that was a position that got funded by our city council. And so tell us what you do.
Okay, so on a daily basis, I'm meeting with our unhoused clients and giving them resources to help them better themselves and get them out of the situation they're in. Those resources are anything from reunification of family to getting document ready for housing to referrals to North Central Healthcare and other services for case management. Basically, I meet them where they're at and I ask them what it is I can help them with, and then from there we develop a plan.
Sure, and I think it's worthwhile for anybody watching this to know that those plans that you develop with them have resulted in lots of people going from living outdoors or in shelter to having stable housing. And so that's something we celebrate here on a regular basis. So let's get to the meat of what the issue is and what the police department and you are doing. So I think a little history is important here to understand that Catholic Charities, an organization, Catholic Charities of the Diocese of La Crosse, for I think 12, 13 years has provided what's been defined as the warming center here in Wausau. And that got spun up and they provided that service at no cost to the city of Wausau, so to speak, because they recognized an issue in this community with people living outdoors, especially during the cold weather months. And so for the last 12, 13, 14 years, they've been providing that service. About 2 to 3 years ago, there was definitely an ask of the police department to enforce our ordinances and our rules and our laws in regards to our parks and in our parking ramps and in essence for people camping, unhoused individuals camping in the greater downtown area and what was seen as really a negative impact of homelessness on Wausau. And I would just say the challenge for the police department was kicking people out of where they're at. Like, we had rules that say you can't camp in a park, you can't live in our parking ramps and the stairwells. But if the question was asked, well, if we can't be here, where can we go? And if the answer was nowhere, that's something that we, as our values here at the police department, just didn't allow us to not create a place for people to go or not have any place for people to go. If we were doing that, I wouldn't go home and feel good about myself at the end of the night, nor would any of the staff here. So when ARPA dollars became available to the city of Wausau contracted with Catholic Charities to provide shelter, not just what they had historically done from November through the end of April, but to provide it 365 days a year. And so for a period of about 2 years, the city of Wausau funded that service through them. And I'll just take a moment here and say how grateful we are to Catholic Charities. They provide an invaluable service and they have saved lives in our community. But then moving forward, in order for us to be able to contract and provide that service, we need to use our procurement policy, which is a request for proposal program. Also during this period of time, not only did the city of Wausau allocate additional dollars for sheltering and services to the unhoused community, but Marathon County government voted to match the dollars that that the city of Wausau had allocated. So really the dollars that we spend on this type of programming are 50% Marathon County, 50% city of Wausau. So we put out this request for proposals for 365 Shelter, and we received one response. And that response really was not responsive to providing 365 Shelter. It was a proposal, which was a good proposal, but it was for transitional living, which isn't what we're necessarily looking for at this point. And shortly before those proposals were due, Catholic Charities made a decision that they want to go back to providing their standard services, which is low barrier emergency shelter from November through April, which we're still appreciative of, but that leaves us with May 1st through November. What do we do, and where do our unhoused population go? Because if I go back to what we would be willing to do as a police department, I believe I don't want our community to look and diminish the value of our community by having campsites all over and the different challenges that come with that. But in order for us to remove those and feel good about ourselves, we need the ability to have some place for them to go. And that left us with, what do we do now? Because we don't have a proposal, and knowing that numerous or at least several organizations have reached out and said, we'd be interested in doing a proposal, we just couldn't do it on your timeline. So we made the decision to do it ourselves. And by we, I really mean you, because a lot of that responsibility rests on you. But let's talk about what that's going to look like.
Sure. So we will be utilizing the First United Methodist Church, their basement. This was a makeshift shelter for us during COVID. So we know that the space exists where we can house men and women separately. And we also know that we have the capacity this time around, since we don't need to social distance, to be able to fit what we believe is our target number of 55 to 60 people in there on any given night, which means that everybody who is homeless should have a bed each night. They don't need to worry about being part of a lottery system. They're no longer a number. So we're going to be able to accommodate that need in our community.
So I think you bring up an excellent point there, which is a question I get asked on a regular basis, which is, how many people, if not for shelter, how many people would we have sleeping outdoors in the city of Wausau? And you brought up like capacity. So when Catholic Charities moved to the CPC building, what was anticipated as the capacity need was 30, and that's what their capacity is. And so we know from looking at the data that there are people that show up for shelter and they're unable to be sheltered on that given night, and they're turned away, and they're forced to sleep outdoors or find some other accommodations. And so we believe in the shelter we're going to open on May 1st that won't be an issue, because we'll be able to serve that capacity. And so what is the number? We know that throughout any calendar year, we have between 200 and 300 unduplicated individuals that at some point in time in the year sought sheltering services. But that ebbs and flows as people become housed or have a place to stay. So on any given normal day, we're estimating that number to be between 50 and 60 people. And we do that because of our community on-call experience. So when the temperatures in Wausau were dipping 10, 15, 20 degrees below zero, where it's incredibly dangerous to be outdoors, the capacity for Catholic Charity Shelter was increased, as well as our community on-call program, which is utilizing other organizations, churches, locations that open their doors during those extreme times and temperatures. And we create an environment where nobody is unsheltered that night. And when we had those frigid cold temperatures, we took the number that were in community on call, as well as the number that were sheltered at Catholic Charities. And those numbers were somewhere between 50 and 60 on any given night. And we also took Wausau Police Department staff and went out in the cold and looked under every bridge, looked in all the places known to us that people might be sheltering themselves outdoors, and sleeping outdoors, and we were not able to find anyone. So to the best of our ability, if someone were to say, what is the actual number of beds you need to serve everyone if everyone sought shelter, it's somewhere between 50 and 60, and we know that our current space is going to allow us to be able to serve that.
Correct. And in addition, we do have some additional space available, which I think is important to recognize because some of our unhoused really struggle with a congregant shelter setting. And so in this space, we also have the ability to take individuals that aren't feeling real comfortable in that big setting and put them off into a smaller room so that they can have the space that they need to feel safe and comfortable. And that isn't something that we've traditionally been able to do with sheltering here in the past. So I think it's going to be an opportunity for us to engage with clients and really shelter them based on what needs they have.
Oh, I think that's a great point, which is, one of the goals of shelter is not to be a lifestyle, but to be a place that is a kicking off point to improving your situation to become more stabilized in the community. And in order to do that, having them be able to successfully use shelter and rest and feel safe, I think is important. So piece of cake, right? We just open a shelter. One of the heavy hurdles for any organization is having funding to be able to do that. And that really isn't our hurdle in this particular moment because we have dollars allocated from the county and we have dollars allocated from the city. But you're the one that has experience running a shelter. I don't. And you kind of surprised me a little bit because we have two big needs at this point in time. And one of them is we need to hire staff. And the other is the volunteer component. And so let's start with staff. Just when someone says, what do you need here in the community? The city of Wausau we've been through our human resource committee as well as the council, and we've established 2 new position titles. And why don't you talk to us about what those are and what that would look like?
Sure. So there's 2 different positions created. One position is called the shelter lead. That position will have oversight of the operations from 4 p.m. Prior to people coming into shelter through 12 a.m. And their primary responsibility is oversight of the operation during that time. So it's oversight to the volunteer groups that come in. It's oversight to the flow of traffic with the clients. And really more importantly, it's connecting with the clients. We want the people that utilize this shelter to feel that they have somebody that they can talk to in terms of trying to help them get out of the situation they're in. So the team lead is going to be more critically used for engaging with and getting clients resources and having conversations with them that need to happen and a plan developed to sustain them and to get them out of the situation they have. Then from midnight till 8 in the morning, we would have 2 additional staff on. Those individuals would be called shelter advocates, and they would do some of the same, meeting with clients, maybe if they're not able to sleep or they're having a rough time, engaging with them, having conversations, linking them with resources, but additionally having some more clerical data entry pieces and things like that. So really the need is it's a limited term employment opportunity. It can be full-time or part-time, whatever the needs of the applicant are. So I believe we would be looking for 2 to 3 shelter lead positions if we can get that, and between 8 to 10 shelter advocates. So I highly encourage anybody.
So if you're listening to this and you're thinking to yourself, hey, maybe that would be something I'd be interested in, or you're a student in a field like a social work field, or you just have a passion for serving people in a vulnerable community, this might be a great opportunity for you, and I'd encourage you to go on the City of Wausau's website and look under employment opportunities where directions on how to apply for that job exist. And we need to hire some people in the next 2 weeks so that we can open on May 1st. And so feel free to apply. We're a great organization to work for, or at least I think so.
Yeah, we are.
So with that being said, there's still a significant need of volunteers. And we're hosting meetings with faith-based organizations and other providers and other groups within the community. But I would start out by saying, like, oftentimes people ask me, why should I come work in Wausau? Like when they're applying for police officer jobs, why Wausau? And we can talk about all the cool toys we give our officers and that we have new technologies and things that we utilize. But the reality is, one of the things that makes Wausau special is whenever need be, this community has stepped forward and served. And whether that's supporting officers here or other nonprofit organizations, like, what is the need? And this community has stepped up. And this is just a time where I'm asking, we need help from individuals and organizations, because it's going to take 9 to 11 volunteers per night in order for us to operate this shelter in an effective and an efficient manner. So can you kind of run through, like, what do volunteers do what would this look like?
Absolutely. So the first thing that we'd like to be able to provide for our unhoused is a meal. If we can get that donated through whatever volunteer group is going to help us that evening, that's great. If there's any local businesses or restaurants that want to sign up for a meal, I would strongly encourage that. The ask would be to make a meal for 55 to 60 people. So that's kind of a big ask, but it's what would be necessary to feed the unhoused on any given evening. And then the volunteer groups, we're asking them to come in from 6 p.m. until 9 p.m. And really, as much or as little as you're able to give, we're grateful for anything. So what the jobs would entail is there's going to be an intake process. So we would need 2 volunteers to be sitting at the main door and welcoming our guests when they come in each night. We would have a tote room, which is going to be where they secure their belongings. And so there'll be 2 to 3 volunteers in there assisting with anything that they need from the tote room, getting their totes on the shelving to pillows, pillowcases, etc. We will have a meal served downstairs in the space we're going to be in. So just volunteers to kind of float around, talk to the guests, make sure if we're running out of silverware, they replenish that, drinks, things like that. And then just a couple of individuals just floating around to just engage with the clientele, make them feel like they're part of the community they're in, make them feel special, try to talk to them, get their story. So really, it's going to take a community to make this successful. And that's why I believe that the reach goes further than the city of Wausau. I'd love to see individuals from, the Weston Schofield area all the way out to Edgar if we can. This is a community issue. It requires a community solution. And with the city and county joining forces to engage in this population, I think that opens it up to the entire community to participate. So that's what we're going to need.
One of the things that's important to me, like, that's great, and I appreciate that, and that's a great explanation. It's exactly what we need. And you brought up feeling part of a community. And one of the things that's important to me, and I think I would speak directly to the unhoused community, and that is, like, we value them. Like, they have an ability to contribute to our culture and our community. And so they need to understand that. And we need to be able to, through our actions and our words, be able to share that message. But another part of the message is, and I alluded to it earlier, which is this is not a lifestyle. Like, utilizing emergency shelter is not a lifestyle. So many of those individuals have their own story, and they need their own recipe, so to speak, of resources that allow them to be housed, to be employed, to at whatever level that is that they're capable of. And in order to do that's not something we're necessarily providing, but we're fortunate in this community that we have those resources that exist here and other organizations. And so one of the challenges for us, but it's an absolute necessity, is we find a way to partner and bring those organizations in so that we can learn the story of each individual, and we can make sure we have the right resources available to help them move the needle. I feel like if all we did was provide a safe place to sleep for them, we're spinning our wheels a little bit. So to have the opportunity to partner with those other organizations and deal with people that are vulnerable in our community and struggling one person at a time and realize what are their needs. That's one of the goals that we have. And that can involve our volunteer force as well as these other organizations within the community. Like, we all have the same end goal. We might feel a little bit different on what the pathway to get there is. Mm-hmm. But if we can work together, one person at a time, I just don't believe we've reached a point in this community where other communities, I think, have, where we don't have the ability to change course. And like, we haven't lost this fight or this battle yet. And so what we're doing is we're providing a stopgap. That stopgap is about 8 months. And we'll be republishing our RFP. And hopefully by giving that 8 months and the framework and the stability of this stopgap shelter that we're providing, that creates more opportunity for those other organizations to feel comfortable putting a proposal together. I've said to numerous people, like, this is really hard. And like, there was not a morning that I woke up and thought, you know what the police department should do? We should open a shelter. Like, those words never left my mouth. We're doing this because we can, and we think it's important, and it allows us to continue to maintain the quality of life and improve the quality of life in Wausau. And it's a key component of that. But we also know that, and I feel comfortable stating, a year from now, we're going to be in a much better place with sustained and solid footing to hit this base level of what we think is the foundation of improving what our strategy is to address homelessness in this area. And that base foundation is stable shelter that exists, that meets the capacity that we need. And I feel good about, the trajectory that we're on and what our plan is, and our ability to pivot when necessary. So I'm cautiously optimistic. We're in a much better place next year, and a little bit excited to see how this goes, because this is a significant challenge.
Sure. So one of the things that I have heard so far from some community members is, how can we help? What can we do? And, there's a lot of moving parts right now. So I have partnered with St. Vincent de Paul, and they have offered to be our donation drop-off site. So in the coming days, we will probably have a list of needs that if somebody wants to make a donation to that list, they can do so at St. Vincent de Paul. They will have drop-off hours as their normal business hours exist now. So I would encourage anybody who is interested in wanting to support and help, you can reach out to myself or Chief Barnes.
Yeah, give me a call.
So, that would be great.
What are some of the other things? And, when there are people that want to do something right now. So we have had a few individuals that are like, we'd like to help financially. And if you're wondering, like, well, what is that money going to be spent on? We have to purchase twice as many cots as we currently have to be able to put in this space. Those cots get blankets and bedding and pillows, and we need twice as many sets of linens and bedding that we have, because we wash them on a regular basis. We've had individuals donate money so we can put washers and dryers and refrigerators and things that we need in order to function in the facility. So if you're inspired to make a cash donation, like, that can be made to the Wausau Police Department, and it'll be earmarked for shelter. What are some of the things that we know we would like there? Like basic toiletry supplies. We know we're going to need shampoo and soap and toothbrushes and all those things that you would use on a daily basis. Things that I anticipate we would be able to put to use are things that are sealed, like granola bars. In the morning, I'd love to be able to send someone out the door with some calories. So, those are things that as we move farther down the line here, we know that we're going to need, and we'd be appreciative of the community as well. And then lastly, I'll beat a dead horse here, which is we need people's time and talents. And I'd say we're making this up as we go, which there's some truth to, as, well, what about this? And then we have to make a quick decision. I'm certain we haven't anticipated what all of our needs are going to be or how different organizations can be involved. And I would just encourage everyone to recognize, like, this is the biggest challenge through my lens as the chief of police that this community is facing, and it's something we can deal with. It's doable. So if you feel mildly inspired and want to get involved, you can reach out to Tracy or myself, and we're going to create some opportunities for this community to really move the needle. It's time that we step on the gas and we get what we need in place to be able to say, we don't have a homeless problem. Now, I say that we will always have a homeless population here. We've always had a homeless population. I've been here 25 years. The situation has definitely grown over the course of my career. And what does not having a homeless problem look like? I see it as something we call functional zero, which is we have the resources in place to deal with a known number of individuals currently dealing with being unhoused. And we are able to successfully house people and have them leave homelessness at the same rate that people might enter homelessness. And then what we have in the middle is this functional zero group that we have the resources in place to be able to help them move along that path. And if we can accomplish that, then we're not going to have podcasts like this, because this is a community that's capable of serving in that way. What we aren't capable of doing is have an ever-growing population of unhoused individuals, and having to the money doesn't exist to continue to grow the resources. I think we're in a good place right now if we use them, if we're smart on how we use them, and we put a strategy in place that allows us to have what we would call a functional zero.
And I would say I've been doing this work since 2017, and this community is fantastic. And I know that when we make this ask and this call to action in this community, that we are not going to be surprised at how many people come forward, because that's always been my experience here. And that's why I love this city and I love working for the city. And I think that this shelter is going to be a huge success in a lot of different ways.
So we're coming to the wrap-up portion of this episode of the Wausau Police Department podcast, and I think we'd be remiss if I didn't try and alleviate some concerns that if I were a member of the unhoused community, I think I would have, which is, now the police department's running this. And I just want to address some of those concerns. Like, number one, this organization cares about you. And we have hopes and dreams for you that hopefully you can see, and we can work together to try and achieve those things. Like what you can expect. You can expect to see some police officers, because my expectation of our staff is that our officers is that they are friendly, caring, professional, respectful, and they stop by and try and build relationships with everyone in the community, including those individuals utilizing our shelter. The individuals that are working day to day, we provide oversight for them, because we were the only organization that said, okay, we can spin this up so that everyone always has a choice to seek shelter. So we value you, and my expectation is that you'll probably be a little anxious utilizing the shelter that we're going to open. Give us a little grace, because we're doing this in a matter of 3 weeks to get this open so that opportunity exists. But I'm very confident that what you're going to find is a group of great people that want nothing but the best for you. So I hope that helps relieve a little of the anxiety over the police department and, what's this going to look like? My hope is, and my expectation is, that you find a very supportive environment, that our goal is for you to have a safe place to be and access to all the things that you might need. And so that's our goal. And my call to action for this community is, you've done it before, we're asking you to do it again, to help us move the needle and achieve the long-term goals. And I really believe that this will be an environment where if you give of your time and talents to serve this population, not only do they get something out of it, but certainly I hope that you see the fruits of your labor and the benefits and watch people move the needle and leave homelessness. And I can't think of a better way to be fulfilled than to get to participate in something like that. So give us a shot. We're going to need a lot of help as we move forward. But again, it's not even cautiously optimistic. I just know that this community has always stepped up when we ask for their help, and that's what we're doing right now. So with that said, this is the end of our first podcast where we're talking about homelessness and the fact that we're going to run a shelter. We're full of excitement and anxiety as well. So if you want to come along on the ride with us, we either as an employee or as a volunteer or a supporter, we would love to hear from you.